Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Founder Files. Today, I've got a very uniquely and proudly South African story for you, and this is Donkey Long Tong. If you haven't heard about them, it's pretty much in the name. They manufacture very long braai tongs. And I saw them on Instagram before I even became in contact with them to get on the podcast, but they have such a unique brand and approach that you're going to find all throughout this podcast. They're just such authentic guys. But really what we get into this episode is how they've managed to grow and scale internationally, be in the likes of US, Canada, Australia, UK, how they've been able to get their brand and marketing rights to really leverage word of mouth at scale and really protect their brand around their product, how they've gotten lean manufacturing processes right and how they got their operations to a great point. We chat about culture and how they get their employees to take a true sense of ownership over what they're doing. And just in the midst of this, there's just some really cool lessons around their philosophy around scaling their business that are really counterintuitive but are working super well. This has been one of my favorite episodes of all time to record just because these guys are having so much fun whilst building their business. And I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons to learn from these entrepreneurs is how they're going about having fun about building their business. And yeah, enjoy this. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss amazing podcasts like this with super unique stories from amazing founders in South Africa, then you want to make sure that you're following the podcast. If you are not following this already, please click follow, subscribe in all of our pages, just to make sure you don't miss content like this. It's also the best way to support us, best way to support the podcast, best way to make me feel happy. So yeah, make sure that you're following. But without further ado, this authentic and amazing conversation with Nick and Marcel from Donkey Long Tong. Welcome to the Founder Files, the podcast that's like eavesdropping on a conversation with a successful entrepreneur over a fireside chat. Join me, Cameron Coots, through this unique experience of unfiltered stories and insights from scaling founders around the globe as they share their ups, downs, and everything in between. Marcel and Nick, welcome to the Founder Files. As I was saying offline, given the fact that I've had Veldsken on here and Brian Abana and now Donkey Long Tong, I don't know which one's more South African, but I guess I'll let the audience decide in the comments. Welcome to the podcast.
I think you can have all three around a fire, so that's all that matters.
And I guess that is the final common denominator of what makes South Africans, and all three of those things are perfect for a braai. So I think we should maybe organize one of those at some time.
Braai Habana,
yeah. That's definitely not the first time he's heard that. Okay, lucky guys. Welcome to the podcast. So for the sake of the audience, talk to me about Donkey Long Tong. What are you as a business? What do you sell? And how did you start the company?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of kick us off, we're big adventurers, we're big campers and overlanders. Marcel and myself own Land Rovers, and to any Land Rover owners out there, you understand the bug that bites when you're out there in the bush, when things don't work, and the necessity to have quality products with you when you're out there. And often when we're around a fire, you constantly drawn to different problems and the heat of the fire and all of that kind of stuff. So we decided that we wanted to create something that was quintessentially robust and something that really needed to make sense around a fire. And it actually all started way before that. It actually started when the three of us were living together, and we were braaiing on our simple Weber on a balcony and burning our hands like everyone does. And we just said we need a longer tong, and not just anything longer, proper longer. We called it a Doos Long Tong. I don't know if you're going to censor that out or anything, but
there's a button that just says explicit content. As soon as we say that, we just hit click and then it's fine.
Okay, so everybody can figure out what that is. And then from then it was a joke between the three of us. And we, 3 years later kind of thing, Marcel was tinkering around with his Land Rover and cutting some files and laser cutting some elements, and he was almost sick and tired of this joke around the fire, this Doos Long Tong, this Doos Long Tong, this Doos Long Tong. That one day he came and he was like, here's the Doos Long Tong. And Simone and myself, Marcel's wife, the three of us who started the business, we were so blown away. It was amazing, and we didn't think much of it. It was still this joke that we had. And when every time we went camping and we were around fires and out in the bush, everyone kept looking over. It's like that, that car that rocks up at a campsite and everyone looks over. you bring this tong out around a fire and it really does turn heads. People have never seen something so long before. Like, oh my gosh, and they'd come over and, where did you guys buy this tong? I said, no, it's just our little tong, something that we
It's the
just
only
made.
one.
It's the only one in the world. And after about 6 months of continuous, people asking and asking, where did you get this? We thought, okay, maybe this is something worth actually starting. And yeah, I'll let Marcel finish the story there.
Yeah, we've got the saying that all good stories start around a fire. And, Donkey Long Tong was never this mastermind plan. We never planned for it to be what it is today. It started out as a joke amongst friends. And then the joke carried on for so long that it became a real thing. If you speak about something for long enough, you can kind of make it a reality. So I think there's a big testament to the importance of speaking about things. You think about things, you speak about things, and then that puts certain actions into motion, and then that's how things develop. So honestly, we never thought anything of this. It was a joke, and then we made a prototype, and then even after the prototype, after 4 months, 5 months, we just still thought, cool, we just had a nice long tong that we could play around with. It's good for us. And then even when we decided, let's maybe give it a chance, like let's start a business here. Even after that, we thought it might be a small little side thing, So which is quite contrary to, I think, a lot of businesses, that you've got a quintessential founder who's got like a visionary with big plans, and you can kind of try and lay out the future as clear as you possibly can. But yeah, that's definitely not our story, So we were just having fun, friends, braai all the time, and we had this long tong, and yeah, one thing led to the next, and it kind of really still feels exactly like that. And every time when we kind of lose track of that, lose sight of that spirit that got us to where we are now, we try and get back to that. And I think that's one of our strongest principles that keeps driving the growth that we're experiencing. Like, we made these long tongs for us. That's why we made it. It was for no other reason. And we had such a good time with it, laughing at it, playing with it, and all the stuff, that people kind of looked in like, I also want one of those. And I guess that's kind of like the essence of a fire. Is when it's cold at night, when it's dark and the fire's burning, people just stand closer. A fire never asks anyone to come closer. It's an instinct. You want to be around it, and it's actually quite inviting, and people kind of relax and open up around the fire. So I completely lost track of thought there.
No, I mean, I'll carry on there from Marcel. And so we decided to meet each other. The three of us decided to meet each other in the Richtersveld, and this was in July 2021. So now they drive down from the Caprivi. I'm driving up from Cape Town. We meet on the border, and we're now, this Doos Long Tong thing we're going to now talk about around a fire in the Richtersveld, no signal, and we're going to try and discuss and figure something out. And we're now racing to get to the gates on time. We're always late for things, and the gates are going to close to the Richtersveld, and we literally Ken blocking in our Land Rovers, and eventually get to the gates, and we find our way in. And on our way there, we had come across this donkey cart while we were racing. And these guys were like, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. And as we slowed down, we came around the corner and the entire road had washed away. And thank goodness for these guys in the donkey cart for telling us to slow down, because we may not have been here after that. And we eventually had to crawl on half the side of the mountain to get past this little road that washed away. And then we get to the Richtersveld, we set up camp, and we're talking about DLT. This is now a baby without a name. Doos Long Tong, Woolworths will never stock Doos Long Tong, so now it's DLT. And we thought, no one's going to know what D stands for, only we will know. And
it's like an inside joke. This is how serious we were about this.
Yeah, exactly. And then we thought, now we're talking about this donkey incident that happened, and we started realizing that the donkey itself is quite an incredible animal, and it really represented a lot of what we thought about this talk. It's a humble animal. It's reliable, and it's forever hardworking. And going back to what I was saying about being in the bush and adventuring and relying
There's
on
also something long about it too.
exactly. We'll get there, but I'm glad you jumped to it. I mean, it's on everyone's minds, and I think that's what's so great about the brand that we built is that, you know, there's this elements of this innuendos and this humor, but we never have to say anything about it. Everyone thinks and everyone tells the jokes for us, which is so great. So we can like get, you know, off the hook by not saying anything, but just having this brand, and everyone else is doing all of the naughty stuff for us. Like you just did as well. Exactly. Point in case. I'm talking about this humble donkey and you go straight to the fucking portion. I'm sorry. Explicit content. Anyway, so now we're talking about this like this reliable animal, this humble animal, forever hardworking animal. And if you think about it, when you're sitting around a fire, your fire's central stage. You know, that is the center of the stage. Then people sit around the fire and stories are shared and traditions are passed down. I mean, we've been doing this for hundreds of thousands, millions of years, who knows? But fire's been an integral part of like the growth of and the scaling of humanity, essentially, if you could think about it like that, right? And then the tong is something that's always there. It's a tool that you really need, but it's never taking center stage. But when you need it, you can rely on it to do the job. It's humble, it's there in the background, but it's always ready. And it's forever hardworking if it's built with quality in mind. Not just something that's a volume game and something that's a consumable that'll break, something that will literally last a lifetime and hopefully generational. Then we realize, okay, cool. The donkey is a really great animal to go for, but every brand goes for like the body of the animal, the face of the animal or something. And we started realizing that, you know, we wanted to leave our mark kind of on every adventure, on every fire lit and all of that. And a donkey leaves its marks by its footprints. And that's what kind of led us onto our logo being the footprint of a donkey. And now you've got the three of us who are not artistic at all. And now we're drawing things in the sand. And what does the donkey's hoof? Now we've got no signal. We have no idea like how things look and fire and all of that stuff. And we've got some beautiful film photos that captured all of these moments. So that was July. And now we're on our way back to Cape Town. And we think, okay, the perfect day to launch this business is Braai Day. That's in September. We're like, okay, well, that's 3 months actually, okay? We've got to do everything, manufacturing, packaging, registration, websites, everything. So what we did was amazing. And we did this while we had jobs. So this was like a midnight hustle. Laid up at night on an Airbnb counter, ordering the first 300 tongs. Both of our Land Rovers were broken, as they normally are. So we had to use Simone's Fiat 500 and the three of us in the front and 300 tong arms in the back. You eventually get to the Airbnb. We put all these things together. And this is what happens when you rush stuff. It's like you talk about product market fit and prototyping and all of that. There was one prototype, which is the original tong Marcel made. And that was it. And then from there, it was, okay, final product. And all the components arrive. And I get home one day, I call it home because it was home for the three of us for a bit. And nothing's working. Marcel, you can continue there. Nothing's working.
Yeah. So basically, like Nick was explaining, you know, we kind of with stars in our eyes, we decided, okay, let's launch this thing. We weren't completely ready, to be honest. But that does feel like the best way to launch something is when you're a little bit unprepared and say yes to something and figure it out as you go. And that's the best way to learn, is to do something. So like all our products we've launched subsequently as well, we've tried to have as many refined prototypes and products before, but inevitably it never happens. And the products get refined the most when people start using it and we get feedback from clients.
Which is also a very like typical startup advice. Is like, if you're not embarrassed of your MVP, you're going to market too late. And it's like, it's always like, you can test as much as you want in the background when it's in the customer's hand. And that's the funny thing, is like how you built it to be used versus how your customers end up using it. You realize that you've got to build this in a different way than you expected.
Exactly. And like Nick was saying, is like we basically went from one prototype to final product. And, you know, everything was designed on a CAD program, Fusion 360. Just drawing things up with no formal training. And like, you know, any professor of engineering and design would have a heart attack.
They would look at Marcel's files.
If you know how the filing worked, and oh my goodness. But yeah, so we had all this. We had this great plan on paper, essentially, on computer. All the models worked perfectly. Everything slided, and the tolerances were dead on, and all the components arrived, and then nothing fit. The shafts didn't go in the holes. Everything was too long, too short, and we had no power tools, no
Great use of words
experience.
there, mate.
Yeah. From component level to final product, the innuendos don't stop.
Yeah, it doesn't stop, eh?
So anyway, so everything arrives, and we try and put it together. It just doesn't work. We use sandpaper and Scotch Brite and hand files that we go buy,
Like the opposite of duct tape and press stick.
Exactly, just shaving off corners of steel to try and put something together. And yeah, it was struggled. We call it struggle tongs. And we would make like 5 tongs, and 2 would go to the side. And the 2 to the side, like, I think they're still in the back of our factory somewhere. We never got around to actually fixing them up. It's like save it for a rainy day. So, time is the thing that's the most valuable. And especially as you're scaling and as you're growing, you have to be more cognizant of what are you wasting your time on, as opposed to where you're wasting money. Wasting money is not ideal. But if you can do the calculations quickly to try and think like, I can do 500 new tongs, or I can go back and fix 10 old tongs, just make 500 new tongs, and just focus more on the future and kind of forget the past. And now it's like these relics that we look at and we can laugh about it. But in that moment, we weren't laughing. Yeah, I was just struggling up till 3 a.m. And it took us like an hour to make a tong. Honestly, it was a joke. And every time we hear of somebody who has one of those first 300 tongs, we're like, please take another one. Because we're quite embarrassed of the quality. But now it's great, and struggle makes you strong. So struggling with all these tongs and figuring out where's the pain points, how does the bottle opener function, where's it hooking, how thick must it be, materials, processes. Everything starts to make sense with experience. And then for a year and a half, it was just the 3 of us. We did everything. And so that means we understood what to do.
Well, about a week before we launched, because we decided braai day is the perfect day to launch a company. It just made so much sense. And about a week before we launched, we went live with the website with a full 3D textured lit render with not one single product made, because nothing was working. We were like, we can't hold this off. We need to go live. So we went live. Sales started coming in. France Malaba was actually customer number 2 on our website. Sal and I love rugby. We're jumping over the moon. We're like, bro, you're in France. Like, what do you mean? How are you buying tongs? How do you know about us? It's so cool. And then we had that week to put everything together. And then we launched the company on braai day, and we had about 100 family and friends come over. And then that Christmas, there was about those 300 tongs that we started with were sold. And we were going into Christmas like, wow, this is quite cool. There's people that want these tongs, and not just friends and not just family, and no one's returning the tongs. And we're like, okay, well, obviously, Oaks are happy with the way they're functioning, and the packaging was cool, and we're getting great reviews and responses and stuff. And the next year, we just thought, okay, well, we can't do this on our Airbnb counter anymore. We need to find an actual space. So we went and we found a little space in Pardon Island. And again, it was still just the 3 of us in a little 80 square meter. It was a storage unit, actually. And from there, I think that's where we get into the nitty gritty of the skating. And that space really allowed us to start thinking bigger. And I think that was probably one of the biggest and best moves we ever did, was to find the space that enabled us to think bigger, and to do bigger things, and to get more people involved. And subsequently, since then, we've been able to take over most of the building that we're in. We've gone from 80 squares to like 400 plus squares. In what's it now, 3 years, just over 3 years. So yeah, I think that's kind of how it started. And there's a lot more to talk about, I guess.
Yeah, there is. No, guys, thank you. I can tell that you are good storytellers. I mean, you definitely have your place around a braai, and just around but for the point of storytelling, I think there's also something that you've done so brilliantly well, and that's your marketing and branding. But I mean, just a couple of things that have really picked up from me in this conversation is just the first one around, it's such an obvious problem and gap in the market. I mean, like everyone has tongs for braais, but it's one of those accepted realities of like, I'm going to braai, but I'm going to burn my hand. It's just like, I'll put a glove or like wrap a wet cloth on, or just like get closer or eventually build calluses. It's like, it's just something that we all just assume is a reality. Like I find it's like one of those things until that product hits the market, like when the product hits the market, everyone's like, why the hell has this never
think
existed
about
before?
it?
Like it's exact same thing around. It's like going there, all the different campsites, and everyone's like, where the hell do you get that? Because that solves every basically problem I have with a braai, which is just basically getting burned.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest problem with braaiing. As long as you know how to braai, that's the biggest problem with braai. Right. And so that's the issue. So it's one of those like, it's so obvious of a problem that no one knows about. So when it is solved, it's like the ability to grow quickly. Exactly. And I think that's the whole point around like product market fit also benefits that you guys are your own customers. Like the fact that you solved the problem for yourself first, it was working, you end up getting all this feedback from the market and realize, okay, cool, there's demand for this, right? The fact that it's like, okay, well, we're going to do it around braai day because it's relevant to do so. You've already like tested, like, you know what's working. Obviously there's the problem around the first 300, but that's really the go to market, and then it works and it lands. And the fact that your second customer is a Springbok, right? It's like
huge.
There's all of this that comes together where it's like this journey to product market fit isn't really this journey of like pivoting and figuring out and doing all that, because it's like like the problem was clear from the beginning and you'd already like, I mean, that's the thing is like, if you the great thing about like innovation like this is that you take your entire process and what you went through, and then you look at like startup methodologies and you followed it, right? But you just did it out of common sense actually, and a bit of desire to do something cool.
It's true, yeah.
Which I think is really, really cool and fantastic, and kudos to you guys for doing that.
Thanks, man.
We just don't like struggling, you know. It's like, it's again, we somebody asked us the other day, you know, when you started this business, you know, when you did your SWOT analysis, you know, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and
I was like, I haven't heard that since high school.
Yeah, so they said we never did a SWOT analysis, you know, we're just making tongs. So, you know, and my background is like finance and mathematics and investments and stuff like that, financial risk management. And Nick as well, is in the film industry for 14, 15 years. So that, with a background like that, there's no university for making tongs, you know, so you can't really become formally trained in the tong industry.
Well, industrial designers, to be honest.
Yeah, that's product design, industrial design and stuff, yeah.
So, but you know, like you have to be crazy enough to make a long tong, because an industrial designer would have made a perfect short little tong. You know, you would have optimized the problems of, the sheet metal is so expensive, we need to optimize the cost. And you're like, yeah, very valid.
And then on top of that, like selling a tong for 900 Rand, you know, everyone told us, you guys are crazy. You guys are up. There's no ways. Marcel's dad was one of them, you know, he's like, that's not going to happen.
An industrial designer would kind of like optimize the fun out of it, you know, the cheekiness, the unnecessary, like this entire business is completely unnecessary. I can understand the function.
The market doesn't think so.
Exactly, the market doesn't think so. It is extremely necessary, but we've also been able to cope without it for hundreds of years, you know. So, and then every now and then you get to this old guy's farm and he made himself his own like very heavy long tong that he uses on the farm. But you know, like that's a big part of our brand as well, is that cheekiness. It's kind of, the tong is very often too big for the fire pit that you're braaiing, but it's kind of an inspirational product. We're trying to inspire people to make big fires. So we're kind of telling you, the fires that you're making is not big enough. You need to make your fire that is going to fit the tong like that, you know? So, and then the South African market kind of, you know, bought straight into that. So I think our biggest strength is just listening to our clients and kind of thriving off that feedback. And because it's such an engaging product, we are constantly inundated with requests for new products, new ideas. Our clients always want to communicate with us and form a community. And we've just been listening, honestly. That's all that we've been doing. We've been listening to our clients, try and keep them happy. But the reality is, if we've made very small tweaks in the final product, and from that first prototype to the first final version of this first 300, very little has changed except small tweaks to make it function a little bit easier. So we feel extremely lucky. We kind of did stumble upon this without this master plan.
Well, to be honest, that's also the story of like, that's the typical founding story of people that build great businesses, is the fact that it's like, I didn't go out there wanting to be an entrepreneur. Like often, like I engage with a lot of people, it's like, I want to be an entrepreneur. It's like, cool, what problem are you solving in the world? It's like, the problem is I'm not making enough money and I don't have enough free time. It's like, you have no idea what entrepreneurship is.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you actually started this was just like by chance is really cool and epic. But guys, let's get into the meat of what the whole point of this podcast is about, really, and like a bit about the scaling journey that you're in, right? And really finding out about that. But before getting to that, like the scale that you're at now, right? I mean, you've gone from there where you had your first 300 units ever and then sold in a couple months. You're now producing 400 units a day, like across a couple SKUs, right? I mean, I think you've got like somewhere between 4 and 6 products at the moment. You're in multiple different countries. Right. So like, talk to me, like, what's the scale that you're at right now? I mean, you obviously had beyond record breaking sales for yourself this past December. Where's Donkey Long Tong at now in its journey?
The thing is, because again, we designed the first one for ourselves. We only thought we would make one. So we designed the product to be as complicated as it can be, because you only need to do this one. And so everything's kind of handmade and very labor intensive. And that was fine, because we only needed to do one or maybe 20 or maybe 300. But now we've created this dilemma for ourselves. We need like a handmade artisanal product, but we need to do that 400 times a day. At scale, we have to scale an artisanal, like if you think of a traditional samurai making katanas, where it takes them 6 months to run through the process. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but that is kind of, we've created this dilemma for ourselves where these are beautifully handcrafted products, but we need to do it an insane volume. So the same way we started off on an Airbnb counter, kind of MacGyvering things together, you know, like if you could, we'll have to take you on a tour to our factory at some point to show you.
I'm going to take you up on that. Nick, you promised me a tong. I think instead of giving you my address, I'll just come collect.
Exactly. Much better deal.
So everything that every tool that we use at the factory, we've got about 30 different hammers in the one hammer rack, and you need all 30 hammers. Every hammer's got a different reason, because 30 tongs go together, and then one tong does something funny. Then you need that special hammer, and then you tap it like that, and then it works. So we've got strange pliers and tools and things to put in springs. So everything's very strange. Everything's so strange at that factory, and the solutions that we come up with are equally strange. That's exciting. It's stimulating to be forced to think outside the box like that, which is wonderful. But we use completely non-standardized components. I think the only standard components we're having there is 2 M6 bolts. Everything else is 100% custom.
Really? So like, there's nothing there that you can actually just like get from like a hardware store or like some typical like steel, like it's steel, right? Or aluminum.
Yeah, so it's 304 food grade stainless steel, and then even like the solid brass rivets are custom brass rivets. The handles are custom. The threaded shaft on the inside, the nylon bush, everything is custom.
Yeah, this also explains why no one's done this before.
Yeah, exactly.
And we always say the reason why people never made tongs long is because the methodology of making tongs traditionally was so flimsy that if you made it too long, it wouldn't last one session, you know. So
you've got that classic thing where you like pick up your steak and then it does that, and then your steak does a bolomakisi on the braai and then it's on the floor. And so, you know, when you make something longer, you've obviously got a lot more leverage that you need to deal with. You've got a lot more sway that you have to deal with. So the back of your tong is so crucial to the stability and the structure of it. The way the arm is not just bent into a 45, but you're actually creating a complete like U-channel. All of that is being completely redesigned in the normal way of making a tong, just so that these things are really longer and stronger than your average tong.
So you've got all of these custom components, right, that you've had to really get. And now I'm trying to like unpack the relationships that you have with your suppliers now, but also the manufacturing processes that you've built in order to be at this current scale. So like, I want to know, like, what's the repeatable model that you know is going to be fine moving into the future? And how have you really built this in a manufacturing process?
I think, no, this is something that I don't know how, but we kind of intuitively understood this quite early on. We were humble enough, at least, to admit that, there's some things we know, but there's a lot more that we don't know. And we can't gain 40 years of experience overnight. So we need to empower or employ the knowledge of people with vastly more experience than us in their specific categories. So but we love the idea of producing locally in South Africa. So like just manufacturing in China was just completely against what everything we stood for. So there was just never an option. So many people told us, especially at the start, go to China, you'll never be able to scale, you'll never be able to do South Africa, you're paying way too much for your components, blah, 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 again and again and again. So that lure of cheap imported products from overseas just never attracted us. We were just very stubborn on that. Donkeys are very stubborn. So we had a picture in our head and we were like sticking to that. We want to
Well, thank you for sticking to that on behalf of the South African economy.
Yeah, and I feel like we're being rewarded for that now. So the consumer often gets accused of being, dumb. But I think the consumer is a lot more educated than we give them credit for. And they can smell a rat. They can't always pick it up immediately. But in the long run, eventually they figure that out. But the way I truly think we've scaled is because when we just started out, when we made that first 300, it was me, Nick, and Simone. Before we had the factory, we went to a guy out in Montague Gardens, and we're like, hey, we're 3 kids, we want to start a tong company, you want to kind of help us out, we need like 300 of these. And he's like, you guys are crazy, like, and the guy looked at me straight in the eye, because I think after the second and the third time we were there, we were being a little pushy. We were there like 5 days ago and he wasn't ready with the components. Like, bro, why take so long? We've got braai days coming up, and he looked at us just like, you guys are a pain in the ass. Yeah, that's what he said. And I mean, that guy has now maybe made 100,000 of that same components, and we're still with that same guy. So I'm telling the story because to invest in a long-term relationship with a person, ultimately you've got computers and CNC machines and AI and all this stuff. But for now, at least, humans do business with humans. And because we've got such great long-term relationships with our suppliers, we can expect so much of them, and they are thrilled to be part of this journey. They are so proud. Like our laser cutters take us for breakfast to meet Trickers to Proceed. They are so excited to showcase, they send us videos at 12 at night where they're working late at the factory. Like, look at all these tongs, You're like, so we've like all the other suppliers that we have feel like an extension of our own company. And that's how we've really been able to scale, because we haven't had to import expensive machinery from Switzerland to hire knowledgeable people. And because we have a premium product of a premium quality, we can ask a premium price. And that means you're a price maker, not a price taker. And then you can afford to pay your suppliers well. And then they love having business from you. So it's just a beautiful relationship to leverage the hard work that people have been doing way before I even thought about being in business at all. But that all boils down to trust and relationships and just cultivating, working together with people that are already at scale instead of trying to scale. Just work with solutions that already exist.
I just want to pause in our story that we're having right now, just to tell you a bit more about why we're doing this podcast in the first place. Why did we start the Founder Files? So obviously by day, I mean, I have a business that I need to run. The Founder Files is not yet at the point of being its own profitable business. I'm not exactly Stephen Bartlett. But the point of the reason why we're doing the Founder Files is that when it comes to being an entrepreneur, right, if we want advice, we'll pay for it. Or tell me how you did it, and I'll cherry pick those lessons and apply them with my own business. So obviously the experience shares, getting those lessons from other founders, is why we do this podcast and why you probably come and listen to this podcast. How can we take this wisdom from other founders and how can I apply it to my business? And the whole point of the Founder Files is to give established entrepreneurs like you practical stories and insights from people that have been there before, so you can avoid years of trial and error in scaling your own business. That's the entire philosophy of what we do and why we do it. Now, this links to the greater philosophy of Metavolve. And Metavolve is, our purpose is to accelerate the time it takes to build a great sustainable business. Our mission is to ensure that as many entrepreneurs as possible can take a holiday where they actually switch off whilst their business keeps growing. And our vision is to create a world in reality where more SMEs able to thrive independently of the founders that started it by transforming how businesses use strategy to scale. So that's us in a nutshell. This is our philosophy and where it's aligned, because we really are promoting that vision of creating amazing businesses that aren't dependent on the founders, because we want to create a world where not only there are more amazing and successful entrepreneurs that build great businesses, but they're also present parents, they are present with their friends, and they're just healthy human beings that have the time and the capacity to really just live a balanced life. And for me, and for us at MedEvolve, this is exactly why we do what we do, because we're trying to create not only healthy businesses, but healthy entrepreneurs, right? And if this is something that resonates with you and something that you are in pursuit of having a healthier balance between your business and your life, then reach out to us. This is exactly what we do. Let's have a conversation to ensure that you have got a bit more sustainable balance in your life and your business. That's it about MedEvolve for now. Let's get back into the practical stories and insights. So 100% agree with you. I mean, like the nature of the relationships that we have with the people around us, I think is absolutely amazing. But guys, like the more that I'm talking to you, the more unique I'm finding your story, but from an attitude and philosophy and culture perspective, right? And it just goes to show why your brand is so strong, because this is actually how you behave, how you show up in the world. This humility that you have, this patience, right? A lot of people are like, cool, we're going to take this brand to market. We're going to look at profitability, and especially like Marcel, you coming from a finance background, right? It's like going to be like, how do we maximize profitability? How do we win from this? How do we get to pay ourselves for more camping trips? And you're like, no, right? It's like, I've already got a good life, right? I want you to win as well. We're going to do this on a journey. And from that, it's very easy to be able to build an audience and a proper community and solid brand out there, and one that's could trust, because it's actually how you behave in the background. And it's so interesting, because everything that you've said right now doesn't surprise me, right? And from what I've seen just on Instagram and social media of you guys, because that was like the only real interface I've had with Donkey Long Tong before me and Nick had our first call together, is it's like I've picked up genuine authenticity in this brand. And it's like, and I can't tell you why. I would love to know why and how you created that, by the way. We'll get into the brand part. But it's like, I can't tell you why as a consumer I picked that up, where I was like, just immediately, I think I saw like 3 posts from conscious memory. By that time, it's maybe 30, but before it's actually sticking in my head. But like there naturally was like, I can trust this company. I don't know why, I know nothing about them, but I can trust this company. And the fact that like exactly what you've done there is, that's the stuff that I think people struggle to foresee, right? It's just that true character, integrity, being like a human, being good to the people around you, and just doing that. And after that, naturally, there becomes this cascading effect of your reputation, your network starts taking care of itself and starts taking care of you. And I think that's in that, and again, that's why I'm so passionate about this topic, is like essentially being a psychologist that's now operating within the realm of scale-ups and entrepreneurship, just to understand how human beings work with one another, just to see this in action. Again, just from what you guys, it's like what you think is common sense of how human beings should be dealing with human beings is testimony to why you're able to scale to where you are now. So just, really shout out and credit to you guys, and not just what you're doing, but the way you're doing it. I think that's absolutely incredible.
I just want to say one thing that I think will fit well with this, and that's, because in your kind words, thank you very much, we've tried to create an authentic brand that's kind of gone full circle, and that is keeping us accountable now, because that's become like the foundation of our success story. So as soon as we stop being authentic, we might lose the whole business that we built. So we've kind of tied up, we've handcuffed ourselves to authenticity now in a certain way. And often when we come to a crossroads where we have to make a decision, where the one is a little bit more authentic and one a little bit less authentic, design in California, assembled in China situation, it's the decision is easy. The decision is easy because we just have to do what feels right. And my next relationship there, as important as our relationships are with other suppliers, my relationship with my wife and Nick, is crucially important. We say that's the core of the apple, and if that's fraught, then everything else is fraught. So it won't work. But I just thought that's nice.
100%. No, it's a very valid point. You can't have such good relationships with the people around you if you don't have such good relationships in your co-founding or leadership team. Cool. Before we end up making this essentially a kumbaya around a braai situation, because it could very easily become that. Let's get a little bit more a little bit less emotional, I say in inverted commas, but back to the manufacturing side of things, right? So I mean, you've got all these different components. They're very customized. It's artisanal. It's handcrafted. You went from originally taking an hour per tong. Now you're producing 400 units across multiple products a day in 400 squares. Like what have you done to develop like a modularized manufacturing process that allows you to do real volumes now, and the model that you found scale further?
Yeah, I think just a little bit before we get super stuck into that is that, when we launched the business, we made 0 rand on each tong. And I promise you this will go into that. But, we made zero rand on each tong because the volume wasn't there. And we didn't have a foothold over our suppliers because they're like, well, they're only ordering 20 at a time or 100 at a time. And we knew that once we really proved the concept of this business, which took a while, it took, in the greater scheme of things, not super long, but it took about a year to get to the point where we could go back to our suppliers and be like, okay, well, the volume's here. Now we're talking about price. Now we will be ordering consistently from you. Now we can actually start increasing our GP for our product. And then that's when you start to have a little bit more money to play with. Then you're able to either go into machines or hire new people. And don't be afraid to not make a lot of money right in the beginning. Really just go and prove the concept. Go and just prove that people want to buy this thing, and use it and then talk about it and give you feedback on it. And then once you're able to do that, and then you've created like a little bit, we always say our best form of marketing is tongs in hand. Now the tongs in hand, now people are talking about, now there's a demand that's being created. Now more tongs are being needed. And now your volume's gone up. And then you go from an 80 square meter place, you need more space because now you've got more people, you've got more components, you need to store more things, you need to make more things, and you go and get bigger space. So you go to 200 square meters. And now you're ordering bigger volumes of components. But then what you need to do with that scale is you need to manage it. And there's no point in Marcel and I buying more components, but then still having to make the tongs. So now you've got to hire people and teach them how to take on certain responsibilities and tasks to create these products so that you can step away and really focus on the supplier relationships or growing the business or getting into new stores or whatever it may be. And I think that was that turning point for us, is that when we could go to our suppliers with bigger volumes, the ball started to become more in our court. And that's when we can call suppliers and say to them, we always have this fun thing with suppliers, and they say, when do you need it? And we say, yesterday. And we're literally it's gone to a point where they really do put our jobs sometimes in front of so many other jobs, just because they've not just bought into the volume of it, but they've bought into almost the vision of the company and the mission of the company. Again, that relationship that we have with them.
To segue into Nick's, again, emotional answer into a more practical, numerical answer, I'm going to say something emotional too. And that's, that the main driving force, and then honestly, I think this is quite honest, like the main driving force for us to be able to scale is our passion. Because we've had to solve 800 small little problems. Every day, every week, there's a new scaling challenge that we have to deal with. But we have a deep desire to please our clients, because the feedback that we get from our clients is overwhelming. People really, honestly, people like tongs, but they love a Donkey Long Tong, and you can feel the difference. And so that's what is like this driving force behind us. So what the scaling solutions specifically are, we'll touch on some of those things now, but that's almost not important. Where there's a will, there's a way. And so if the will is strong, the way will find itself. And very often our suppliers will phone us at 3 a.m, like, yeah, I had an eureka moment last night in the shower. I know you're struggling with this. Here's a thing, get that machine, boom, boom, boom. And so often the solutions for scaling, just people bring to us on a silver platter. They just come to us and say like, we've got solutions to your problems. But like Nick's saying, it's because they're buying into the story, buying into the brand. So I don't know, but that's not, maybe if you're selling, life insurance, or if you're selling, pension fund plans or whatever, you can't use that same tactic. People might not be that passionate about it, but but people really are passionate about this business, and we feel extremely privileged to be in a position to be custodians of this long tong and how to make thousands of them.
We always say there's complexity and simplicity. How do you make something more simple? And trying to make something more simple is actually so much more complicated. And what we're so lucky with is that it is a tong. At the end of the day, it's a tong. It's a couple of components that need to get put together. Their components need to be correct, but they get put together, they get put in the box, and it goes. And so in that sense, because we don't need software and this and that and all these other things that could go wrong and bugs, and you focus then on each component and how do you get the best component that you can and the volume for it, and then how do you actually assemble it. And we created something like a modular design, like a modular manufacturing setup, where we have a tong table with a tong maker. Now, if he's got all the components and all of the handles and all the tong arms and all that kind of stuff, he can do about 150 a day comfortably. If we push him 200 a day. So if that was the demand, then you just have one tong maker. Now the demand doubled. So what do? You get another tong maker and another tong table. And now if you 10x, then you do the same thing. And so you keep adding this kind of modularity to the business, where if you need more products or more units made in a day, you just get a guy in, you teach him how to make a tong for a day. Maybe he's not at full capacity or efficiency in the first week, but then he'll quickly jump into it and then carry on like that. So that's how we've been able to scale in terms of, if the demand's growing, then we can kind of complement that demand with just getting another tong maker.
I think you can, now let's get a bit more technical. I think you can scale linearly and you can scale exponentially. And to scale linearly is easy. If you've got one tong maker and you need twice as many tongs, you add a second tong maker. If you need 3 times more tongs, you add a third tong maker. But that's quite linear. And it does scale, but the costs don't come down. And the space requirement, the physical space requirement also, goes up.
Well, your profitability is either just shrink in time, specifically your net profit. Because, I mean, again, it's like from a gross perspective, like actually the cost of sales to manufacture, that's fine. But now you start getting to
overheads and all of that, yeah.
Your overheads, your back office services, you're big enough that you need like proper finance and HR, and you need bigger space. And then now your profit just starts doing this.
Exactly. So what we do is, and like Nick said, we've got different segments. We've got like a recipe, like you bake a cake. You got all your ingredients, you put it together like this, you put the knife in, you check, okay, is it ready, whatever. Like so we've got ways in which we bake this cake. And what's important is when we focus mainly on the bottlenecks. That's all. When we don't hear any complaints, we don't even ask questions. So I'm sure you're familiar with the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. And I mean, that's a key pillar in our decision making every day, is we really just try and focus on the 20 most important things, 20% of the most important things. We ignore 80% of our problems. And that's hard to do because,
that's very hard to do.
This window's cracked and we're sitting on boxes and we haven't, there's only 3 cups for 10 people. So there's real problems, but we always try and come back to the 20% of our main problems, because if we focus on them, we'll get 80% of the benefit by reducing that. And so we'll always linearly scale bottlenecks until it becomes such a problem that we have to completely reinvent the step, and to completely rethink how we do that step in the manufacturing process. And normally that only happens under severe pain. When it, like for example, all the tongs used to be wrapped in PVC plastic, so that in the tool that's bending it, there's a protective layer of PVC on the outside of the tong. So when the tong is finished, bent up, and you've got all this heavy machinery, bending components, there's no bend lines, and it's not damaging the final product. But then you have to go and peel plastic off tongs. And for the first 300, it was fine. Then for like 4,000, 5,000, 10,000, it was still fine. But by the time we got to like tong number 30,000, 40,000, like our nails of our thumbs, we would start lifting our nails. And it's like, can we just find a way to stop doing that? And that kind of makes you hungry to find solutions. And And ultimately, we had a few different ways. There's always many ways to skin a cat, but instead of putting the plastic on the tong, we put the plastic on the tool, on the bending tool. So you've got tape that you must just revolve every now and then. So yeah, like that's a typical story where pain becomes the thing that pushes you to make progress and to completely rethink a specific step. And then that's when you actually like find a way to either, they say the best part is no part, to eliminate a step, eliminate a process, completely rechange the way you look at something. And then then you park that and you forget about that. And then something else pops up and then you focus on that. And then 6 months later, that problem you solved, it becomes a problem again. And you need to then rethink. So like, for example, the way we taking off the plastic of the tongs, we saved so much time. It's insane. And there's many 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 Rand like buffing machines and stuff that we bought that basically doubled our output capacity. It's the smallest little tool there, but the reason why we could use that because it had a variable speed controller. It was so difficult to find an inexpensive variable speed control buffing machine. But once we found that, we can put it at a slow rotation speed because if it goes too fast, you buff burn marks onto the tong. So you have to go slow. It also makes your cleaning wheel last longer. And the cleaning was one of the main problems at Donkey Long Tong. It's just to clean 60,000 tong arms is an immense task. And now, even though we've upgraded that solution to basically 5x, 10x our daily output in how to clean, we have to completely rethink how we do that cleaning again. And we've got a great plan, but now it's all about implementation. How do we implement that plan? Because because now in the morning when you get to our factory, we've got 3-4 guys just buffing tongs like you won't believe. And we've got a way to completely eliminate that step. And we look forward to that. We hope it works, but yeah, let's see.
Well, the lucky thing about your attitude towards this is even if it doesn't work, then it's like, cool, then we'll just figure out another solution. I genuinely, guys, I've done over 100 of these. And this is the first time someone's mentioned the Pareto principle that succinctly, but just towards the problems in business, right? I mean, and I really love that as an attitude of even me personally and the stuff that I've going on in my life now. I'm just thinking about house maintenance and dealing with neighbor cuck, and it's just simple stuff, right? That I'm dealing with in my adult life that's actually causing me quite a little bit of stress and productivity. It's just I forget about the simplicity of that and just an 80-20 principles, and it's not just the 80% of problems that are causing 20% of the stress. I love the attitude. It's I'm actually not going to bother with those things. I'm just going to leave them alone. I'm actually going to worry about these ones now until such point that some of those.
If the problem grows, you'll eventually become the top 20%, and then you'll solve it.
Yeah. And I just love that as a point, is because the problems never go away. It's just a part of life, right? And part of change is you solve one problem, now you've got another problem to deal with afterwards, right? It's just how it is. And so, and yeah, I really enjoy that because it's focusing on the things that matter most, but just in a natural way. Because I mean, even earlier you were talking about, I really love the mention around time versus cash. It's really you can spend this time going and fixing 10 tongs, or spend this time making 500.
Yeah.
Right? And that's such a very valid point. But even to the 80-20 principle, it's all around time. Our most finite resources are attention. And so if we're giving our time towards these problems, but not only our attention to this plethora of minor issues, we're really detracting ourselves away from the things that matter most.
Losing focus, yeah.
That's really cool. I really like that. Thanks for sharing that, guys. Okay, so that speaks a lot around your manufacturing process and how you are navigating that. I think the last question there is probably just around quality, right? So how is it that, and another thought that I had while we were chatting is the fact that your customers also love your product. It's also the nature of having a premium product with a good brand. Is that if I'm paying a good amount of money for this, I'm going to value this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm going to treat it like I value it. It's not just a tong where it's okay, cool, throw it over there, whatnot. It's this is people form a relationship with this thing. This is my tong. Even your mates can come with this Donkey Long Tong, but it's don't touch mine, you've got yours.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
this is mine.
exactly.
Right? I can see this coming together. I was even Nick, even when I chatted to you, I had I had a friend of mine, before even knowing that I was going to record this podcast, him, I think his uncle and his dad, all of them got Donkey Long Tongs for Christmas, right? So it's just going to show that like you are really getting out there. But like I went for a braai at his place, and he whips this thing out like it's Excalibur. He's like he pulls this thing out. He's so proud of his tong, and but I think the point there is like besides the brand, and again, I just want to put a pin in that because I definitely want to get in the topic. It's the nature of having a premium product but charging at a premium price. Is that you don't have that level of care someone has over a product unless it is something of quality and a premium. And the fact that you've been able to do that with something that's so normal, like a tong, right, just goes to show that one, solving a real product, being unique but also being valuable, having a relationship with your customers can really make sure that they value your product. And if they do, it's not just about adding value. Like you can add value as much as you like, but if someone values the value that you add, that's very meta. But if they value the value that you add, then they're going to form a proper relationship with your brand moving forward. And like that's going to what's really unlock a lot more word of mouth and growth and scale. So on that, even though the point is premium, there's also the quality level, right? In order to be able to maintain that, because that's one thing when you start scaling that can really start disappearing quite quickly because you're just trying to keep up with demand and quality disappears. So like being a premium brand and product is one thing. As my shareholder and mentor also says, is becoming successful is very difficult. Being consistently successful is extremely difficult. And I think the same thing here is around something that's premium and quality. So I basically said the question about 4 times without saying the question. But the question is, how are you maintaining quality and small margins of error within your process as you're starting to scale?
I think just top of mind, there's normally you would get to a certain point in the product's life cycle that before it gets put into a box, you do your QC, you do your quality checks. But we've been able to instill QC almost at every single point of the product process of assembly. And it goes through 16 different hands before it even gets onto the tong. From putting the little bolts into the threaded shafts, from making the handles and staining the handles, these guys are literally looking at each individual component one by one naturally. So why not instill QC from every single point of the process? And if a tong handle gets put onto a tong that's not of quality, it's very rare because it's literally been seen by 20 different eyes essentially before it gets to that point. And then before it goes into the box, obviously that's the final QC point. And to this day, I mean, we've had very, very, very few returns. How many tongs out there at the moment, Marcel? 50,000?
Yeah, 50 to 60,000, somewhere around there. We're trying to count, but it's not in the top 20% of important things to do, so we don't get it.
And normally the return is because it's too long. So then they come and they say like, this is too long, and then we say, well, we've got a shorter one, a 69 centimeter, and they're like, okay, well, I'll take 2 of those then.
To add to what Nick said is, and back to what I said earlier, we created this dilemma because we've got an artisanal product that we have to produce at scale, and I think there's two key things there, and they feed into each other. And to answer those 2 things, I'll just say something quick. I said the 5 most important things in business are people, and people. So as much as we invest in our brand and in our products and our suppliers and our clients, the team at Donkey Long Tong, we say Donkey Long Tong is a hidden sanctuary for lost souls. And the 3 of us are the first 3 donkeys that wandered in there. And we really do treat it like home. We honestly do spend a lot more time there than we do at our own homes. And wonderful, we enjoy spending our time there. And everyone buys in to this Donkey Long Tong vision that we kind of painting, but we also feel like we kind of discovered it because we didn't have this plan to create this thing, So we are on this journey with everyone else, and we are guiding them to get to where we want to be, but we kind of very much figuring it out daily as we're going on. But we really try and get the buy-in from everyone that works at Donkey Long Tong, because there's a certain fatigue that sets in after 3 hours on the job, after 3 weeks, after 3 years. You know, like there's a certain fatigue where a tong might be like a 90% tong. And then, nobody's looking, let's slip it through, nobody will know. But for us, we say like, we like the SPCA, like each tong is going to a family, this will be like a heirloom, they'll give it to their grandkids. So if you feel like, how would you feel to receive that tong in a box?
Especially if you paid that price point, if you paid that price point and then you receive a tong of quality and premium aspects to it, and there's a default or defect, that's not a nice thing to do for a customer. So why put it in the box?
Yeah, and so like a big thing is, I think everyone at Donkey Long Tong knows how hard we are on quality and what a high standard we try and set for a braai tong. But what I think is one of our main strengths, and that's kind of the second thing. So the first thing is the buy-in from all the employees to love Donkey Long Tong and really feel that they want to make a good tong, not they need to make a tong, they want to make a good tong. I think that's crucially important. And then secondly is people is and this is only something we've been doing over the last year, especially year and a half, as we've been gaining more employees, is we can't be the conduit of communication. Employees need to speak to each other in our absence. That's so important. And so we need to cultivate an environment where everyone can communicate to everyone. So you have a tong cleaner, which could be seen as a derogatory, low-level employee who's not important. But we don't see it that way at all. You have the final touch on that tong before it gets sealed in its box. So that's one of the most crucial steps for QCing. And then you get an employee who is cleaning a tong, and he'll take that to the tong maker, who's one of our most esteemed positions at the factory, and tell him, like, your job, your quality is not up to scratch, but look, what are you doing here? And the tong maker feels proud of the tongs that they make. So we've tried to create this beautiful communication network between all employees, where anyone can say anything to anyone without taking it personally. Because as long as the ethos is in to carry the clients and to build the business and to build that esteem and that brand and that loyalty with our clients, you can say anything to anyone without taking it personally. And I think those two elements have worked very well to scale a artisanal product like this. But you need buy-in from your employees. Very important.
So on that, I want to go a bit deeper, because I mean, I've spoken to a couple people in manufacturing, not on the podcast, but like just in the real world, I guess. And there's this belief that they have about their employees in the manufacturing line that it's just like they don't care. But they boil this down to like they have a socioeconomic reason for why they don't care. It's like it's just the nature of the people that we always hire. Anyone that kind of comes into what we're hiring is just like they're just not motivated, they're not care, they're not willing to work hard. And like I've always called nonsense. Don't get me wrong. I think there's a certain level of pay. Like you need to pay people. Like if you want people to value what you're doing, you need to make them feel valued. That's just basics, right? And that's always the one thing I go back. It's like, how much are you paying them? It's like as little as I can. It's like, no wonder they don't care. But I think, but besides that, and obviously remuneration, guys, like practically, like what are the things that you did to get that level of ownership, right? And ownership over care and quality in what you're doing.
Yeah, I think the biggest things is that we still get our hands dirty. It's not like you did this wrong and fix it. It's okay, let's fix it together. So if it happens again, you know how to do it. These guys see us sweating as much as they are in the back. We aren't these founders that arrive in our Porsche Cayenne and then go straight to our office and sit there and don't say hi to. We go and say hi to everybody every single morning. We ask them about their weekend. We ask them what they're doing today. If something's broken or what do they think they need of more tools and stuff. So there's a constant line of communication. And yes, we are the founders. We are the bosses, so to speak. But they never feel like they can't approach us for anything. And there's so many times where we will jump in to any process in the production line just to do QC ourselves, just to see what's happening. And if we find, okay, well, shit, these last 30 tongs that have come through have all got this slight little ding on the head of the tong. That must be from the press and the mold that it goes in. So we go and we investigate with the workers, okay, cool. Before we continue with another 1,000, let's fix that problem together. And then they start to see like, okay, I need to look out for these things. I need to look out for these things. But more than that, they know how to fix those problems, which is the most crucial thing, because you can't stop production. Production needs to continue. But often in the past, production would stop because no one knows how to fix the problem. And QC is about that. QC is about, okay, cool. Somewhere in the production line, there's a problem. Let's go and identify that, and then let's go and fix it. And because we've done that so many times with them, they're now able to do that without us.
Yeah. And like, again, I think we broke all the rules, because I mean, I at university, I studied, my honors degree was in financial risk management, and I did honors in economics as well. And my father's been in business for 30, 40 years. And from a young age, he's instilled in me like good business practices, like, so I understand things. But like one thing, for example, is to pay your suppliers on 30 days, 60 days, or you can pay them COD. And every financial manager will tell you, don't be stupid. Pay them 30 days, pay them 60 days. But we run a cash business, so we expect to be paid upfront, and people pay us. There's a queue to get tongs. And we pay all our suppliers COD. And anyone's like, but it's ludicrous. You could pay them later. I said, no, we want to pay them now, because if we pay them now, we're on the front of the queue, So when push comes to shove and it's the 20th of December and I need some more components, I'm going to pay you before you go on holiday. With your other suppliers, he's going to try and pay you the end of Feb. So the lines between winning and losing get blurred, when you forget kind of what side on the table you're sitting at. So,
well, it's just the fact that the concept of losing is just not within your philosophy. It's just like if this like even there, like when it surprises me when I engage in a win-win-win-lose kind of conversation with someone, because the paradigm that I have is just like, why can't we all benefit? Like if we're sharing like a same thing and value of this, is like, why can we all not participate in like winning from this? It's like, why is win-lose even a paradigm? Like
exactly,
I genuinely don't get it.
Yeah.
It's not a fundamental constraint, everyone could win. It could be mutually beneficial. And so rewarding employees and stuff to buy into the vision of the company and the ethos, so to give you another example, we've got qualified engineers at our factory that we are paying probably above market rate for a qualified engineer that's doing the work of a person that could be a 6,000 Rand job, to give you an idea. So it's completely backwards. So we do so many things backwards than what's written in the book, let's say.
But we also tell them, just to add on to that, Marcel, we tell them that the company's at a stage where, when we do scale to a point of the 150 employees that you were talking about earlier, these are the guys that are going to be managing teams. But how can they manage a team if they've never done the hard work themselves, if they've never gone through the frustrations themselves? We actually want to frustrate these guys in the factory so they get to a point of designing and inventing an innovative process to better their own job, and they've got the skills to do it. They're qualified to do these things.
Yeah. So we overpay, we pay too fast, we ask questions later, look, we just do everything completely wrong. But for some reason, all the doors just kind of open in front of us, so why are we gonna stop? It makes no sense.
Also, I love that as well, because it makes me think of just the general concept of like, don't hire someone that's overqualified for the job. And it's like, essentially, it's like, well, your ops thing is, no, I'm going to hire someone who's overqualified, but I'm going to pay them more than what they can get for the job that they are actually qualified for. And then I'm going to get them to enjoy this and love the hell out of this. And it's like, and the nature is like, that's so, to your point, against conventional wisdom, because an accountant is going to look at that and be like, you are absolutely nuts, right? This makes no sense.
The books
right?
are cooked,
But anyone who's a leader and actually understands people and has been a leader of people in business is like, that is wise. There's a very wise way. That means that you're not thinking short term. And I think also, guys, what I'm picking up from you as a general principle is you are not greedy. right? For a lot of people that are entrepreneurs, and it's never something that I've pointed out, and I say this without judgment, but it's not about greediness, and like you can maybe spot that in other people, but you're the actual opposite of that. Is it's like you're not looking there around how much can we get from this. Is like you're looking to share. But I think the wisdom is also the long-term thinking of you realized pretty early on that you really are onto something. And so because of that, it's not about how much we can win in the next short term and like what I can be able to get for this cash and from my dividends and payouts later on in this year and this financial year. It's about the fact that it's like this business has got legs, right? And like let's make sure that we get first principles right and that we've got the right talent in the business that when we do scale up, they stay with us, because it's a lot harder and more expensive. There's bigger problems to deal with when you're now trying to hire someone for a managerial role, but you're having to pull them from outside who has no idea about your culture and ethos. So again, kudos to you and your long-term thinking.
No, thanks, because then you've got a guy with all the accolades, but none of the experience. And then you kind of, it's a bull in a china shop. Somebody's coming in, pointing fingers. You do this, you do that. But you haven't made a tong. You don't know anything you're talking about.
How can they respect this guy? You know, they haven't. He's like, you have no idea what it takes to make a tong or finish a handle or make a blow or make a paddle. Yeah, and I think, you know, that's also one of the biggest points. Whenever we interview somebody, we tell them, look, we've created a beautiful little family, a little donkey family, and it's, you know, we're not in the factory as much as we used to be. So it's not necessarily completely up to us whether you stick around. It's the family's choice as well. And sometimes you can be a fit for that family and sometimes not. Everyone just needs to be able to work together and feel like they're all a part of something much bigger than themselves. Because then the ego is completely removed. You know, the guys can't make tongs without the guys making the handles. The guy can't do this without that. So there's a huge sense of team. And I think more so even outside of that, you know, on the WhatsApp groups of Christmas, you know, it's like just constant, like, look at the fish I caught, or it's way more, it is a family. And I think there's a really beautiful story about the horses, and I'm going to let Marcel tell it because I'll butcher it. But yeah, you can go ahead and tell it, Marcel.
So yeah, Jeremy looked us up just to make sure that we make sure that we've got the right information. But basically, somebody did studies with horses a while ago, and I mean, a horse isn't 1 horsepower. I think 1 horse is 4 horsepower. So I don't know.
Yeah, I know, it makes no sense to me.
4 legs.
Each leg is 1 horse. But they wanted to kind of understand how strong is a horse. So then they said, okay, they started lining up horses and have them pull certain weights, and seeing like how much weight can they pull. And if you know the story, I'm going to tell it anyway. Then they pull these weights, and then they try and write down like, okay, he can pull this much. Okay, next horse, and they work them through. Get a nice sample of 20, 30, 40 horses or something. And then they kind of decided maybe it will be a bit more accurate if we put 2 horses together, because, or 4 horses together, because, you know, like it says an average, you can get an average per horse. But then again and again, they found when you put 2 horses together, it's not double 1 horse, it's like 4 times 1 horse. It's like, well, that makes no sense. But the empirical data just shows again and again and again and again that if you put 2 horses together, they are 4 times the pulling capacity than 1 horse. And if you put 2 horses together that are brothers, then they can pull 10 times the weight of 1 horse. So sometimes, like, I like this thing that Nikola Tesla said. They said scientists have substituted experiments with mathematics and ran away with the conclusions, or substituted experiments with formulas and calculations and ran away with the conclusions. So Nikola Tesla was a experiment. He was always doing experiments.
He's an inventor.
He was an inventor, you know, like the proof of the pudding is in the eating, you know. So don't explain to me, don't just show me. Explain to me physically, practically. I want to see what you're talking about. And so I think there's, in today's day and age, where we can run simulations and we've got all these tools at our disposal, which are extremely valuable. I think it's very important to just begin, and then pay attention on what you're observing. And then from there, you can iterate and change and upgrade and kind of make progress. So I think, yeah, that's very important. And so on Nick's horses story is, you know, you can kind of, all your data will tell you, like, no, 2 horses will be twice 1 horse. Like on paper, that's exactly what it would say. But the empirical data is just completely telling you you're wrong. And so you have to listen to, you have to be in touch with the truth.
Yeah, and that's the importance of like a family working together for a bigger common goal. You're getting these guys to really buy into something that it's bigger than them as an individual. And Marcel and us and myself and Simone would never be where we are now without the team that we have. They say that a CEO should actually build a team of people that can make a better business than they ever could themselves. And that has been our forefront of hiring people that are way overqualified for the mediocre jobs potentially. And knowing that because we've got legs for this business, we will require those people to eventually tap into the skills that they have now with the knowledge of the company, the knowledge of production, the knowledge of branding, and the family that they've created amongst themselves. Without, sometimes we sit in the office and there's inside jokes going around. We're like, I feel a little bit out. What are you guys talking about?
I think that's very unique, guys. I mean, because that's also one of the, I even wrote a post on LinkedIn when I was still working in the HR world, just around, I can't remember what I said, but it was basically like, newsflash, if you think your culture's a family, then you probably have a toxic culture. And for the regular, it is the case in most situations, and the reason why is because nepotism is encouraged. There's not accountability. Is about the fact that it's like, as a team member, if you treat someone like a brother, like it was more about the fact that it like a dysfunctional family dynamic of not really being able to have hard conversations and hold people accountable. But you've managed to do something very different there. You've got this level of care, you've got this level of relationship, but especially in what you said is because in these toxic family or dysfunctional family cultures I refer to, it's about what's most important is like the kind of politics and dynamics of who's got power. It's more about the people, right? In the sense, but in the negative sense, you've created, it's about the organization and the concept and the vision. Like that is the thing that is most important at the end of the day. And we'll treat each other like family, but like never as greater than what we are building and trying to create, because we are all in service of this. And I think that's the biggest difference, because in these toxic family cultures, there is a father and a mother figure, and there's these parental dynamics, and because of that, things can get super unhealthy because it's more about dad's approval and who's the favorite and cuck like that.
Going behind backs and all of that stuff.
Exactly,
yeah.
man. Like I think you can get it. Everyone's seen what that's like. But awesome. I think that's really cool. So guys, I mean, I'm back again. I've mentioned, I think, brand and marketing maybe 4 times this podcast, but I was like, we'll put a pin it out of it. I want to talk about it now. But I also want to align it with the nature of the scale that you're at from a regional perspective, right? So not only are you in South Africa, you've got proper presence in US, Canada, UK, Australia, which I think is amazing, but that's a whole different kettle of fish. Right. Unfortunately, I don't think we've got the proper time to talk about distribution right now, which I think is its unique thing, unless we can blend into the topic. But I essentially want to blend 3 things together to get a sense of how you've got this right. But your brand and marketing, how you manage to scale that internationally, maintain the brand, and do that through your distributors. There. Good luck. I was just giving you a very complex thing to answer.
I think, from day one, we always knew that we wanted to go international. And in the background, while we were building the business, we started laying down the foundations of import-export codes and sussing out the viability of going international, but while trying to prove the concept here in South Africa. And it felt like things just aligned so perfectly that once we'd created those almost the foundation of distributing internationally, where we had met with potential retailers online or influencers or other brands that were similar through Instagram, and we proved the concept in South Africa, all of those relationships were kind of solidified, and then we were able to get stock out there and then start creating some sort of brand overseas as well. So that was going in the background in terms of distribution while we were focusing on we are a handmade local South African brand. Initially, we had this concept of like, it's not a barbecue, it's a braai, and we're going to tell the world it's a braai, it's not a barbecue. We removed the ego. There's no ways you're going to do that to America, But also, you can't tell a South African, buy a barbecue tongue. They're like, I'm not going to buy a barbecue tongue. It must be shit. It must be made for gas or whatever. But you can't tell an American, buy a braai tongue. He has no idea what that is. So then it was like, okay, do you have 2 Instagram pages, one for America and all of the cool kind of like language that they use, and one for South Africa? And we thought, no, we're going to keep it at one because we want to be seen as a purely handmade South African brand. That is the heart of who we are. But you'll see on our packaging, we will say tong or braai tong or barbecue tong. We even have a little place there where it says South African braai terms, just so in case they like see the word braai and don't know what it is, and then there's an opportunity to kind of learn a little bit about it. But then that led us into, okay, well, we need 2 websites then, because the rest of the world, the Aussies, the Barbie, the UK guys are called it a barbecue, the Canadians are a barbecue or a grill, Americans are, we're just the only country in the world that don't like the word barbecue at all, because it just means that you can't really braai.
Right. I actually compare it to almost like, well, funny, made me think of this as the word pineapple. In almost every language, it's ananas or ananas or something like that. Just, but they're like literally, you check all the different languages, it's one word. Then English, no, pineapple.
Classic English. And so we like, okay, well, we need then 2 websites, 2 domains, a .com, donkeylongtong.com and donkeylongtong.co.za. Not only for the fact that the brand had to kind of speak 2 different languages, but more than that, the price point. We sell a tong for X amount here, but overseas it's a lot more because it includes the landed costs. It's your shipping, your freighting, your warehousing, your fulfillment, all of that kind of stuff. And you can't really have one SKU on a website with 2 different costs, and then people get upset and then they see it's 900, why am I paying more, and all of that. So you mitigate that by separating it. But that also then gives you an opportunity to speak more their language and speak more our language kind of thing. And so that's the reason for that online distribution of the brand and the products itself. Now, tapping into, before we go heavy into brand, just still on distribution, we met with a guy in Australia. His name's Clinton, the South African guy, has a company called Braai, and he was interested in stocking our products. And we thought, okay, well, first of all, we have a non-perishable product and it's quite small. So he's going to buy, let's say, 20 tongs from us. But then we said, okay, well, if you're buying 20 tongs from us, can we also send you 20 tongs just for our own stock? And do you mind just stocking it in your little warehouse or in the back of your shop or something? And if we get an order on our online store in Australia, do you mind just fulfilling it for us? Because you're already fulfilling your online orders. We're just tapping into a system you've already kind of created.
Well, it's also super beneficial to them because immediately there, it's like from a fulfillment perspective, like the person's going to have to collect. And what happens is like, well, I get this customer that clearly likes a product that I like as well. They're probably going to like my other products as well, come through my door. It's perfect for customer acquisition at the same time.
So it was an absolute win-win. Yeah. And more than that, they're now able to earn a little bit more than they didn't think that they could like have the opportunity to earn a bit, because now they add a handling fee on all of those kinds of things and a warehousing fee. And it's not much, but they're now able to earn a little bit more. And on top of that, you're also now increasing your volume of shipments. So you're getting better rates and stuff with your local shipping companies. And so there was a lot of benefits then that we knew of that we kind of sold into them to jump onto this bandwagon. And we managed to do that in all territories. So we've done it in Australia, we've done it in Canada, we've done it in the UK, and we've done it in America. And that way we're talking to people, because a lot of guys will go to like a 3PL system or a 4PL system. And what ends up happening with that is that you're talking to robots, and then you're trying to get things, and then orders aren't arriving on time, and customers are angry. You don't know where this tong is, and you don't know what's going on. So we canceled that. We're like, no, we went through about 3 different 3PL systems, and we're like, we're out. We're tapping out. We're going to go back to people. So we went back to our retailers. We said, cool, well, this is what we want to do. We want to create a long-term relationship with you. What ends up happening as well is because we're now starting to create more demand for the brand overseas, that we send people to the retailers, because the more tongs that are sold through them, the more they end up replenishing through us. So, and more than that, our ultimate thing with marketing is tongs in hand. So anything we need to do right now is just get tongs in hand. We're willing to take a hit on GP, willing to take a hit on free shipping, willing to take a hit on warehousing or whatever it is. Let's just try our absolute best to get as many tongs in as many hands as possible. It's a lot easier in South Africa to now have this brand and do more brand activations and that kind of stuff, because the brand's established, because there's so many tongs in hands and so many people are talking about it. In the States and in Oz and Canada and the UK, so fewer people have tongs in hand there. So the brand's not that known. And then talking about the brand, we've put just as much time and effort into the quality of our product as we have now with the brand. Because when we first started, it's beautifully wrapped, it's beautifully packaged, it looks like the ultimate gift, and it is the ultimate gift. But if you look at a fire, innately in your mind, you know that you can put food on that fire. You can cook food on the fire. So I don't need to tell you that you can cook food on the fire. What I do need to encourage you to do is light a fire. That's the big thing about Donkey Long Tong. And when we first started, it was so easy to sell ourselves as the perfect gift. But then you could easily end up in places like Big Blue, where you've got this big group of, a massive variation of different gifts. Oh, this is a great gift. This is a great, but then you're just seen as a novel gift. And we knew that we stood for so much more than that.
That's a very good point, because especially like an extra long tong, especially with a bit of a humorous brand that comes with it, can immediately be it's a novelty product. It's not something that's going to be valued. It's going to be like, this is funny, bye.
Exactly.
And as well, someone actually uses it. It's like, actually, this is
and
great.
then they hold the tongue and like, wow, okay, well, this thing is actually
but there isn't
functional.
an intentionality.
Exactly. And that's why you have to be so careful in the way you position your product. And it was easy to sell the first 300 as a gift, and then we started realizing, no, we're actually more than that. We stand for adventure. We're actually an adventure brand. So I don't need to tell you to put meat on a fire. I need to tell you to light a fire. I don't need to tell you this is the perfect gift. You can see that. I need to remind you that we're actually an adventure brand. And so we did a massive kind of pivot where we pigeonholed ourselves initially into like the best gift ever. And then we broke away from that completely. We removed the word gift from like our marketing and our copy and all of that. We removed the idea that we had to compare ourselves to other tongs with the better benefits and that's longer and stronger and whatever. And we just started selling the lifestyle that this tong should enable you to have, which is getting out there, being an adventurer, overlanding, camping, getting together around a fire, community, storytelling. Those are the things we had to go and tell people. And it was so funny because our marketing agencies always fought me on this. They were like, yeah, but it's conversions. Gifting is going to get us all the conversion. I said, our time for that will come. But we need to get to a point where we've so established as an adventure brand, write articles of the 10 best adventure gifts, and Donkey Long Tong is one of them, or best places to go camping, or the best cabins with the best fire pits. And it was all about that stuff, getting out there and doing things. Like I was strictly against shooting any content indoors because our tongs aren't meant for that. Our tongs are meant to be used in these crazy extreme environments with like crazy extreme people. Like, who's that overlander guy? The old man, what's his name?
Kingsley Holgate?
Yeah, Kingsley Holgate. Like guys like that, that represent this kind of legendary aspect of, this aspirational kind of lifestyle. And I always say, the guys that, because we were able to do that quite well through content and all of that, when the guys were, they get home after their corporate job, their 9 to 5, they get home, they take their tie off and they've had a shit week. The idea is that when they hold a Donkey Long Tong around a fire, they should feel like they're on an adventure. Even though they're stuck at home and kids are running around and screaming and whatever, they can sit there, stare at a fire and just breathe for a second and just feel like they really are an adventure. And that's why we put so much effort into telling people what we stand for. And it got to a point now, only this year, so we did that for about 2 years. And only this year did I open the gates to, okay, we're the best Christmas gift out there. But everybody had now known that this brand was established as an adventure brand. And then when we added that gift word back into the copy and all of our marketing and stuff, it just exploded. We tested it for Father's Day, and we had one of the craziest Father's Day, the craziest Father's Day, and we're hoping the same this year. But it was all just about aligning it with more than a tong. It is more than a tong, and all the products are more than just fire tools. And that's why we also came out with the bag. The jack sack is a lifestyle element to these functional fire tools. You can put all these tools into a nice, beautiful handmade leather bag, throw it over your shoulder. Even if you're walking from the car to your braai, there's that element of adventure. I'm out there in the bush. And I always say, one, you can't sell hamburgers if you don't eat hamburgers. We have to live the brand for people to buy into that authenticity. And I think that's a nice kind of, full circle. What you spoke about earlier, about that authenticity is that we really do live the brand. And people see that. Marcel has been the model for the company since day one, because
I don't know how to take photos. If I knew how to take photos, Nick would be the model.
and we're just able to get amazing content because we go camping a lot, and less and less so as the business grows. Our time is taken up also. But what's so nice is the community that we've created through encouraging people to go camping and through people adventuring and sharing their stories and having these crazy overlanders driving from Europe to Cape Town. We've got all these ambassadors without paying them, because all of them are lighting fires. They're all camping, they're all adventuring, and they're all using a Donkey Long Tong. And they've either met us or heard about us or have met other people using the product. And there's this incredible community online and this feedback from the products because people want to be a part of the brand. Even if they're stuck at home, they are so stoked that they've got a Donkey Long Tong. And they aspire to live like all of our ambassadors, traveling, quitting their job, doing this, being around a fire. And I always come back to the point of being around a fire, that it quintessentially is what our brand is. The idea of community, gathering around a fire, telling stories, sharing moments, even just being calm and staring at the flames. It's been so nice to highlight that and to inspire people to do more of that. And it's difficult to get people to sit around a fire if they have to use terrible tongs. But now they can rely on great tongs that allow them to not only just light a fire, but have fun doing it. And like you said, somebody comes and walks around and pulls out their Donkey Long Tong. They've got like a talking stick, it's like, oh, he's the boss, he's talking, he's telling the stories kind of thing, this is his braai, this is his space. And so it's really enabled that kind of that humor to live through the brand, through our community of customers that own the products.
Yeah, that's really special, guys. Because of how clear what you said is. Yes, that is correct English. I imagine a situation where, you're in a position where Cristiano Ronaldo has one of your tongs, but he's shirtless on a super yacht and on a gas braai. And it's like, that's where the temptation of is like, okay, we definitely need to share this brand name because it's gonna immediately surge demand. But that's a fad. It's gonna go up and down, and it's just a product that Cristiano Ronaldo used. But the problem is, like, what I imagine from you guys is like, you human beings, you would be tempted by that because it's, again, you know what that's gonna do for your demand in the short term. But that's not your brand at all. It's the difference between some random oak with a bob wearing his fullies, dirt on his skin, black label in the one hand, and he's just out there, but he's like in the middle of the bush,
authentically himself. Yeah,
it's authentic. Oh.
That is the story that you share instead of Ronaldo there with the right sunlights, you can see his abs properly, holding the braai tongs, and then he hands them back to his private chef, and he goes and sits on the chef is the one that uses them anyway.
Exactly.
Shame. No shade to Ronaldo. I don't know if he's actually like that, but I'm just saying that just to paint the story, because that's also where authenticity is, and especially as you grow and as you scale, you're going to get properly tested in how you manage that. But I just want to reflect back also into another point that you mentioned on the websites, and it's just like again full circle back to what we said earlier on simplicity and complexity is like really like true scalable simplicity only happens on the other side of complexity, is when you've considered the complexity of everything happening here. And the different domain names, the different website, and the simple different language that you're using is such a simple but clever answer towards how you're going to be able to be an authentic brand, but then also at the same time position it into the different cultures and languages that you participate in. I just think that's such a simple solution to something that actually is quite a complex problem. And I think that's really amazing. And there's a lot of what you've shared today is simple solutions to quite complex problems, which is, again, kudos to you guys. One other thought that I have now is like, and now I want to transition into like scaling into the future and how you're looking at it. But I imagine now, like you mentioned that, but then especially your social media presence and the brand that you're creating in your marketing is going to stay truly and authentically South African. Surely there's an opportunity here to collaborate with something in the tourism and hospitality space. Have you already been presented with that? What's that going to look like? Because now, especially you going internationally, you've got a very authentic brand that you're going to draw people towards. You probably are already having an impact on South African tourism, right? And as you scale and as you grow internationally, that's probably only going to increase. What are your thoughts on that? How's that going currently? What are your thoughts on that in the future?
Yeah, I think the good thing is that there's if you rewind the clock 100 years, there's not a culture on earth that doesn't braai in some way, shape, or form. Fire is integral to the foundation of all ancient cultures, so that's a great starting point. And people know Africa is this wild, crazy, rough place, and South Africa is like the poster child of Africa.
It's the cradle of humankind as well.
Yeah, and Cape Town just got voted the best city in the world. So like, yeah, and the Boca won the World Cup. So fuck yeah, go Boca. So everything is so many things is out of our control. But that's also a wonderful place to be, and so we are playing the field, and the stars have aligned in a certain way, where South Africa internationally has a great reputation. South Africans have drank so much brandy and so much beer with so many people and so many pubs, so many nights, so many mornings, that when you hear there's a South African at a Joel, you kind of want to get to know them and talk to them a little bit. So that makes it easy for us to stand behind the proudly South African, manufacturing story, and looking internationally and how we can kind of really tap into those markets and speak to the audiences in the language that they understand. Is you've got your traditional roots of working with affiliate marketers and people who already have a network of people that they trust. But again, if they say that the ultimate salesman, can convert not sales but the salesman himself. That's the hardest thing, is to sell the salesman. And so if we try and work with affiliates, but they don't buy into our story, where they okay, these guys are just full of shit, like
They just want their 10% kickback, and that's all.
you'll feel that in the video, you'll feel that in the content, and so what we do is like our strategy with affiliates and stuff is so much more like we just give people product. If we see somebody that does cool content, we send them a message like, yeah, you do awesome stuff. We see you out camping all the time. You're making a crazy big fire in the snow. That's insane. We're jealous. Like, yeah, drop us a pin. We'll come visit you. Like, but we would like to maybe send you some products. Sometimes they don't reply. Somebody says, yeah, cool. Like, we might do some content, and then we just send them product. But we will never ask them to ever shoot content.
Never expect anything. Because also, again, going back to the fundamental point is, there's another tong and another pair of hands.
So we feel like we can't really lose. It's a win-win.
It's also such a recognizable product at the end of the day. And I think but again, guys, it's a basic foundational principle that you have of authenticity. And the point is like, if you're going to go to someone who's a content creator, here's my products, but I need you to create some content with the product, you can still feel it's inauthentic. Like, it's like you can tell it's an ad, right? It's like, it reminds me of that South Park episode, right? It's like, that's an ad, that's an ad, that's an ad. And it's the same point there, but it's like, here's the product, enjoy. And I know, because it's recognizable, and because it's useful and it's a like good product, you're going to create content with it. Like, enjoy.
Or even just if you use it around the friends that you have, because you're in that space, you're in that community. Now you're telling your friends about it. It's just, it's a win. And then they end up making crazy content for us. And you're like, wow, bro, did you check that video? And you didn't pay a cent for it.
Yeah, I mean, Nick is very good with the camera, and but most of our craziest content is people surprising us out of the blue. We send somebody tongs and we tell them, like, listen, it's your tongs, do with it what you want. We're not expecting anything from you. If you don't like it, give it to a friend. Like, just do it. It's yours. It's like, honestly, we honestly don't care. It felt right to give you those tongs. Do with it as you please. And then there's a real authenticity, so that if we then ever get feedback, it sometimes takes 6 months or 8 months out of the blue, we just see XYZ tag you in a reel, like, oh wow, let's go see what you're like. We had no idea, or somebody invited you to collaborate on a reel. That's like, yeah, that's amazing. So because the affiliate marketing and all these things, it's quite cyclical. It's a reason why it's $1 billion industry. It makes a lot of sense to speak to audiences that people already trust. But again, like, we've been lucky with a guy like in the States. There's a legend in the barbecue space called
Al Frugoni. Shout out to Al Frugoni.
Yeah, like, he feels like our American dad in a way. Some years ago, it must have been in the year we started.
Springboks.
Yeah, but he's from Argentina, so yeah. Yeah.
That's spicy.
So we were sitting in Mozambique a few years ago in Tofu. We were sitting at some scuba resorts or whatever on I had my honeymoon, and then Nick flew up and he joined me for the second half of my honeymoon. That's how close we are. So we were sitting in Mozambique and we did a video call with this guy, not thinking much of it. Like, oh, he's a nice American guy. He was just friendly from the start, and we kind of became friends. And the other day he invited us to come to Texas because he's launching his own brand, his own barbecue festival, and he's like a pit master.
But he's like the go-to guy in that space. He's like completely the go-to guy. He's the father of barbecue. Even though he's Argentinian, he's the king of barbecue in America. Yeah.
And so he invited us, like, listen, guys, I've got 18 different countries represented at this meetup. I would love if there were some South Africans there. And we kind of looked at each other and said, like, we don't have visas. It's quite expensive. Like, okay, let's do it. Why not? So,
but he also didn't really give us the choice. He was like, you're dumb if you're not coming. Yeah.
And then so we went there and we spent a few days with him, like 4 or 5 days only even. And there's just no substitution for meeting with somebody in person. And that's how we really cultivate real relationships. And as much as great as our relationship was with Al from the start, just because of the nature of his character, that relationship is as if like transitioned into a real friendship now. You have to be up late at night, a few nights in a row, and say some things you shouldn't say, and really get to know one another. And now we're friends, now we can be honest with each other. And now he uses his tongue more than he ever did.
But he doesn't just use it incidentally. Now he's promoting the product, and there's no retainer or like contract or ambassadorship or whatever it is. There's just genuine, authentic promotion from his side for these tongs, which is like there's no ways you could ever dream of that possibility starting out a business.
It was impossible. Yeah, it's an impossible thought. There's some things money can't buy, and what we love to do is we love to promote him wherever we can, because we genuinely care for the guy, and he's a master chef, and he just knows what he's doing. So we learn so much from him, so we can authentically tell him that, support this guy in whatever his endeavors are, because everything we know about him, we like. And so I think for us to, and so not everything is scalable. And I'm sure you maybe, if you've not watched that movie called Air, have you watched Air with Michael Jordan?
No, not yet.
It's a goodie.
Okay, put it on your list.
Add it to the list.
It's a goodie.
Yeah.
Go watch it. It's amazing. So, and so not everything has to be scalable. Sometimes you can only do one great thing, and that's enough. You don't need to convert the whole world. Yes, you need to scale your manufacturing, but from a marketing standpoint, sometimes smaller spikes is more powerful than a long dragged out thing. Almost contrary to what you said about the Cristiano Ronaldo situation, but you need to be authentic, but often to take all your money and condense it and put it all behind one highly impactful campaign is more efficient than spreading your budget thin over 1,000 campaigns that no one cares about.
Agreed. But that's the point. It's got to be the right fit.
Yeah, exactly. And tying it all in together and the scalability of a business and manufacturing and numbers is all like quantitative, and there's something intangible about marketing, and people are like, oh, why are you spending that money there? Let's see direct results. And to a point you can create a lot of data for marketing and your website traction and conversions and all of that. But there's something beautiful about marketing where you can only, you put stuff out there hoping that it's going to give you a lot of like return on that investment. But sometimes you only see that stuff a year later. But the biggest thing is consistency. Be consistent in how you perceive your brand to the consumer. Have the most incredible direction that no one's confused. And like you said yourself, you saw 3 posts from us and you immediately trusted the brand because our direction is so clear in what we're doing. And you may not have converted the first time or the second time, but Now you're around braais and people are talking about it, and you then, okay, cool. Actually, I've got a gift, a birthday coming up. I'm going to buy a Donkey Long Tong. That might be 6 months later. And for me to try and quantify that consumer journey of yours is close to impossible. I don't know at what touch point did you see the brand or did you interact with it? And I think what's so beautiful now is that we've hit obviously our biggest Christmas ever and our biggest season ever. And there's a lot of people telling us that they're talking about the brand and they're around braais and they see our adverts all the time, and we've become a little bit of a hot topic. And what we've done is we've created brand momentum, and right now you've got to keep fueling that fire. You've got to keep throwing wood onto that momentum that you've created. And that's with consistent posting, fresh content, interacting with consumers. And you don't necessarily now just need to keep coming out with new products. Your brand is a product on its own. And you can keep refining that and selling that, and getting people to buy into the lifestyle that you've created.
Yeah, and I think it's also a lot to do with the language that you use. And we've moved away from language to try and push sales and be converting. A lot of our ads, because like so many of my friends have told me, like, yeah, when I go into Instagram, it's just like Donkey Long Tong, like just like I've seen 10 ads today, like stop. I have 10 tongs, like I don't want any more tongs. Like so, like the language that we're using is speaking a lot more to our existing clients. We're almost speaking to clients who already have tongs, not asking them to buy tongs, just more like hey, how are you doing? Hope you're still using your tong.
This is what you can do. Go.
This is what you can do. This is yeah. So this is ultimate fire pit stays, and this is how you make a fire in the rain and whatever. So a lot of the content that we're pushing and we're promoting is not even to try and sell product. It's just to open a line of communication with clients who've already bought the product, and like a lot of people have told us, like, there's a limited scope to this, because once you have a tong, you won't need another tong. I mean, firstly, I know a lot of people who have 10 tongs at home, and even if 1% of South Africa buy a tong, that's 500,000 tongs. That's a lot of tongs.
Because one guy who bought the display unit for retail, but for his house, so that every time you go over to his house, you leave with a gift. And so like when he runs out of this unit of stock, then he just orders more stock like a retailer. But he's just a guy at home that likes to give these as gifts.
He bought 40 products for his house, because the first time he bought one,
and it's actually got a display unit.
Yeah, he's got a retail display unit in his homes.
in his barbecue, in his braai combat, he's got a full stand with all the products. So he's got like 30 products, and then every time a friend comes to visit, they can pick a new gift. So yeah, and for me to maybe wrap up also just on the best angle at international distribution is a little bit ironic as well, because I like that saying that says attract, don't chase. And if we really build a strong South African brand, we've already seen this. We are inundated with requests from distributors and suppliers and stockists from the UK and Spain and France and Guatemala and whatever. People are always coming to us because we are so focused on what we're doing and having fun with what we already have, instead of always chasing the next best thing and, oh, look at this guy, he's got 1 million followers and this guy does that. Oh, yeah, amazing, I'm glad to. But like, we're having a great time over here, and often people kind of look in on that and say, like, that's amazing, I want in on that action, give me one of those long tongs. And so a lot of our success has come from doubling down on the relationships we already have instead of chasing new relationships. And I mean, that's Frankie Fena, that's Just Like Papa, that's the people it's a charity starts at home. So for us, it's so easy to just invest in our friends and family and the stockists and suppliers that's very, very close to us, within a 30-kilometer radius of Donkey Long Tong. Everything happens in this little Cape Town bubble. So yeah,
absolutely love it, guys. So just to lift our heads up a bit and look more into the future, what are your goals, what are your challenges, and how can anyone in the audience and the community that we've got to help you?
Sure. Yeah, I think to remain authentic is definitely, can become very, very can become a challenge when you scale and you start to lose track of things like that. But we we hold each other accountable as 3 founders. I think that's also been our biggest strong point, is we're not running this road alone. And when one of us loses focus or direction, we have the other 2 to bring us back. So that would be the one thing as we scale, and we don't see ourselves getting any smaller at all. And I think the international market's a big one for us. We really want to spread the love of Donkey globally, and get more people to make proper fires, and be almost the cornerstone and the go-to people for making fires. If you think about it, if you're ever around a fire, whether it's a boma or a pizza oven or a hot tub or a built-in braai or an inside fireplace, think Donkey Long Tong. And how do we become that brand, that go-to brand? It's simple, well, not simple, but it's things like, there's fire bans in Australia and America. And maybe being a centralized platform on educating people on where you can make a fire, how you can make a fire, instead of people being, I can't make a fire, there's a fire ban. There's a way. It might be a bit different and a bit more difficult, but you can come to our websites and check the platform out and, I can make fires in these zones. So I can go camping here if I want to make a fire. How do you deal with wood? What wood do you use? It's things way more above the products that we're selling, but really being the leaders in fire and encouraging more people to make fires and disconnect from their phones and sit around a fire and talk shit, and just have a good time. So I think that's definitely one of the big goals this year, is to really establish that foothold.
Marcel, on your side, goals, challenges, and how can someone help you?
Time is the most valuable resource we all have, and me, Nick, and Simone had our first meeting this year. We never have time for meetings. I think the meeting lasted about 20 minutes because we got interrupted with our lawyers, trademark lawyers, coming in for another meeting. So we only had 20 minutes, and we could basically all just shout 3 words that we want to use to describe the year. We had to condense everything we wanted for the whole year into like 3 words. And the words was like happy, efficient, proud. I think the one word was international. So we had like 6 or 7 words like that just that set the direction for the year. And bigger and better and more and tongs and numbers and whatever, all those things. But at the end of the day, this is still our life, and we want to enjoy the journey as much as the end destination. And we want to be pulled to where we need to be instead of trying to push. Because to be pulled is effortless, but to be pushed, it requires your effort. And we work hard, and we work late nights, and we enjoy doing that. But we quite excited to see where this year takes us, instead of trying to push the year into conform to our will. But a lot more tongs, put it simply.
A lot more tongs.
The one thing how people could help is like, we really are looking to build the team, and to anybody listening to this or watching, or if you feel like you're a lost soul, and if you feel like you need a hidden sanctuary and you're a lost soul, then we're the place to come and knock on a door. So I think, we're looking at positions for automation and efficiency, but also marketing and web gurus, customer service. So the team's growing. We're looking to grow the team. If it sounds like something you'd be interested in, and you love sitting around a fire and having a good time and telling stories, then hit us up.
Awesome. Well, guys, and just on the topic of helping, you've been so generous to offer me a gift in the Tong. I not even as reciprocation, genuinely, because this has been amazing. I think you guys deserve it. But on the point of around maintaining authenticity as you scale, one thing I'd love to do for you is when I come around to collect those tongs, I want to do our vision exercise with you. Because our approach is, instead of just like a one-liner vision, is it like a 7-paragraph story of, this is our purpose, this is our mission, this is our strategic intent, these are our long-term goals, and this is what our vision looks like. I think for that is, it's like, if you're worried about the challenge of scaling authentically, that's going to be your ethos moving forward. And we'd love to do that with you. I think you guys really deserve to have that level of clarity.
That's awesome. Forward. Yeah, we'd love that. It'll be like our second founder meeting with a spare wheel.
Love it. Well, cool, guys. Thank you so much for the Founder Files. Thank me so much for the Founder Files. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the Founder Files and for having such a genuinely authentic conversation. I've loved every second of this, and I can't wait to see how you continue to scale to be absolute like bastions for South Africa, for tourism, for being lacquer humans, for making cool products and having lacquer braais, and just keep doing what you're doing, right? So you have all my support, all my encouragement. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having us.
Super kind, and thanks to everyone out there who've supported us. Obviously, none of this would be possible without them. So we say the biggest problem in South Africa, we hope there's enough wood. So
on the note of authenticity, now at the end of this amazing podcast, and I genuinely meant what I said, I really want to help these guys succeed. This is a shout out to anyone that's in the audience looking at this who, might want some help around clarifying strategy, their way moving forward. This is not going to be a pitch. I'm not going to really talk about what it is that Metavolve does in much depth. I think by now, if you've been following along the podcast and hearing me talk about Metavolve for a while, I think you get a sense of what we do. This is just my request to you. If you are on this journey of complexity, you've got some really meaningful visions around what you want to do with your business, and you're at scale stage, you've really figured out what your business is, and you want to really clarify this journey moving forward, have a chat to me, reach out, right? I'm always willing to help. Maybe I'll get in trouble sometimes with my business partner about offering too many things away for free. But yeah, I'm really genuinely want to help. If you want to have a chat around how you can use strategy to transform how you scale, let me know. I'm always willing to do so. And thank you once again for listening to another amazing and full episode of the Founder Files. Really do cherish and value you being here. So thank you once more. If you want to like, comment, subscribe, share this with anyone who you think is going to be valuable, or reach out to the Donkey Long Tong guys. If you can know people that can really apply for some of those jobs and help them out, that would be amazing too. Anything to support and contribute to what we're doing, any value you can get, same thing to our guests. That's why we do this. We'd love to have your support. So thank you for being here, and I'll see you at the next one. Cheers.